many great things in training and developing the youth of this church. In particular, we have the Lads to Leaders program, and I'm going to be privileged at 5 this afternoon to meet with those young men who are interested in the speech area of this program. And we want to encourage any of the boys who want to participate. We have differing ways in which this can be done, both at convention and here at our congregation. We'll be working with you, and certainly the meeting at 5 o'clock, if you're able to attend, you're welcome to. We'll be in the training room. And then tonight we have something. Our Bible Bowl program has started off in a very good way, but in order to offer something for the children who are too young for Bible Bowl, tonight at the normal Children's Bible Hour time, there will be a program in the Children's Library for the children from 3 years old through kindergarten who are too young to be part of Bible Bowl. Some of our young adults are staffing this, and there'll be a program for these children. So certainly during this time where we have Bible Bowl, we don't want these youngest children to be left out. Also, I have to mention, we have coming up this Friday the Ohio Winter Lecture, 6 o'clock, and it runs through the day on Saturday. Please make your plans to attend. We'd love to have you here for that. This year, we're placing a special emphasis with a theme verse of Colossians 3:17. And as we've seen through these opening weeks, this verse, and whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. This verse provides guidance literally in every area of your life. We're going to be highlighting certain specific ways that this verse applies to us, but really anything that we were to discuss in terms of life and godliness would fit under this, for everything is to be done in the name of the Lord. This morning, we're going to be looking at the idea of keeping going in hard times. As we seek direction for life, this world really does not have guidance. But during the easy times of life, sometimes this lack of guidance can be ignored. Things are going well, just like the man in the parable. I'll eat, drink, and be merry. Things are happy. But when hard times come, how do you keep going? This is an area where Christians have an advantage. For we have resources this world could never imagine. And specifically, as we seek to reach out to the world, we realize we have a common humanity. The problems that you and I face, others face. And when people are going through a difficult time, sometimes those times of great stress are the times where the Christian message can be presented in love and compassion, and a door can be opened. You are much more likely to love someone into the Lord's church than to browbeat them in. And as we go through these things, we have an answer to the question, really the most pressing question of our time. What makes life worth living? We've seen so many answers given around us. The rampant consumerism that building up material goods is going to make you happy. The blatant and often perverse sexuality of our culture, that through sexual expression you're going to make life worth living. Through various nationalistic or political or social agendas, that somehow these things can make life worth living. But when you're going through the hard times of life, and you are faced with this question of, how do I keep going? Why should I even put one foot in front of another today as believers? We have a message of hope that we can share with the world. Psalm 34, beginning in verse 17. And as we look at this, I want you to see this passage does not say there will not be trouble. It says there's going to be a lot of trouble, but that God's going to see you through. The psalmist writes, when the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Notice that last expression. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. You have afflictions. I do too. Sometimes we sing the song, Count Your Blessings, but sometimes we should reflect on the various trials that we have and rejoice that there is a blessing in each one as the Lord delivers us. In preparing for this lesson, I came across an interesting agency. It's not a government agency, but it is nationwide, called the American Institute of Stress. I just had this vision of a building, and you walk in, and instead of the hand sanitizers, they have little Valium dispensers. But this institute is a group of medical and health and mental health professionals who review the way in which stress impacts people and people's experiences of stress, and they have developed a list that they call 10 causes. And while this list is ranked according to survey data, they give warning that you must never assume that because something appears higher or lower on this list, that it is of greater importance to an individual. Because stress is not the outside, it's how you respond on the inside. And what may be a tremendous source of stress for you may not for someone else. And something that you have sailed through in life may be weighing someone else down. So there needs to be this sensitivity. But very quickly, in looking at these causes of stress, the very first one was interesting to me because it was childhood trauma. And this is a hidden stress. Most people will never know things that happened in your childhood unless you choose to divulge it. Those who grow up in homes where there is abuse and alcoholism, those who grow up in abject poverty, those who grow up in homes that are torn apart by divorce, these may be experiences that cause stress throughout the entire life of that individual. Because it is in those formative years in the home and childhood that so much of our identity is forged. As Christians, we understand the idea of grace, repentance, and forgiveness. We understand that God is greater than our past. As such, we are able not to be free, but to be delivered. Not to be able to blot out the past, but to have a framework of going through and proceeding. The blessings of the future with Christ are greater than any horror that may have occurred in the past. But childhood trauma is certainly a cause of stress. Secondly, of course, is the death of a loved one. And you don't have to live very long to have someone you care a great deal about taken from you. There are some of these deaths that are expected. The death of a parent, the death of a spouse, for adults are prone to die. It's very, very difficult when you're looking at the death of a child. But at any point in time, at whatever age the loved one may be, the death of a loved one leaves a hole in your life that never will be filled. You don't forget about someone you love. You don't stop missing them. But you find ways of going on. Certainly, everyone in our society, everyone we deal with, faces either the reality or the potential of the death of someone they care about. As Christians, dealing with people with care, dealing with people with compassion when they go through this, is a wonderful way of reaching out with the good news of Jesus Christ. And within the Lord's church, it's a reminder that we are family, and we do care about one another through these very difficult times. The third item that was mentioned by them was divorce. And divorce produces stress in many ways. First of all, there is the stress of the marriage itself dissolving. Then, especially of those who are from a religious background, there can be a moral stress of recognizing that something has happened that should not have. There can be other stresses added on, as when you look at it, almost always one or both of the individuals involved in divorce have to leave their home. They often do not have the same social relationships with other people because they did things as a couple and now they don't. There are so many stresses that come with divorce. Here in our congregation, we have placed a priority on giving a framework for outreach on this very issue. And certainly when people go through this very painful time, it is an opportunity to share the grace of Christ. We find then the fourth is the matter of finance. Especially whenever financial problems are bringing about a radical change in one's standard of living. Whenever a house is repossessed, or when someone moves into the retirement years and somehow the planning did not keep pace with reality and the lifestyle has to be adjusted. This creates tremendous stress. There's a tremendous amount of stress being placed upon young people as they have mountainous student loans to deal with and an uncertain economy. Christians are not free from the realities of economic stress, but we are able to provide a framework of keeping it in perspective. We should realize this stress is rampant, especially in the consumerized world in which we live. Similar to this, we find the fifth area of stress is the stress in the workplace. Whenever you look at the reality of earning a living, and especially over the past decade with the tremendous economic uncertainty and companies downsizing and making changes of plans and going out of business, long gone are the days when someone would graduate from college, go and get a job at a corporation, and then later in life retire having worked at the same place all those years. That still does happen, but it's very unusual now. There are a lot of job transitions, and there's a lot of pressure there's a lot of uncertainty. Workplace issues create stress, especially for those who are not Christians, where perhaps the workplace is their only frame of reference of self-worth. If they don't receive a promotion, if they don't receive the treatment that they think they ought at work, it creates tremendous problems for them. We also find on this list the idea of personal health, number 6. This can be acute, a major episode, but often more stress is created with the ongoing maintenance and dealing with long-term, intractable problems. The aches and pains that come with aging, the uncertainties of heart issues or various neurological problems. There are so many different ways in which this impacts people, and it really impacts all of us. Especially in America, we've been made aware of our health because we're only one of 2 advanced nations that permits drug companies to advertise in the mass media. We're told about all these different illnesses, and I don't know about you, but every time I see something on the screen, I just wonder, do I think I have this? There's this one commercial where everybody on it is blind, and I just keep checking my vision and say, maybe I need that. Personal health, the maintenance of it, the dealing with it, and especially when it is obviously in decline, creates tremendous problems for us. 7thly is just relationships. And it was interesting in the study that they did, they were saying this is not merely those where you have ongoing battles. You know, maybe you have a crabby neighbor that makes life miserable every time you're out in the yard, or maybe there's an adversary at the office who is always undercutting you, or the bully at school. But they say even in the best of relationships, there will be stress. The stress can come through conflict, or it can come through concern, because you care about someone. Whenever they are going through a hard time, you go through a hard time also. Relationships cause stress. And in a very similar way, the most demanding relationship in many ways of all of life is that of a parent for a child. The health of a child is the 8th item that was listed. And when we consider this, especially when a child has a serious, long-term illness, the stress that it places upon parents is very heavy. But even temporary illnesses, when your child spikes a fever in the night and you just don't know whether you need to run to the ER. You don't think so. So you'll try the children's Tylenol, and when the fever breaks, there's this feeling of relief. There's stress connected with the health of your children. And on this list, 9th is pregnancy. Obviously, sometimes pregnancy brings complications. And then the worry for the well-being of the mother and the child is there. But even when pregnancies go well, there are all the changes that are coming. Getting a nursery ready, realizing there'll be economic changes in your family, that there'll be social changes. All of these things involve stress. And then 10th is personal danger, physical danger that comes. And the Institute of Stress listed these as being those of a physical nature, of violence, such as criminal activity. If you live in a very high crime area, that causes stress for you. If you are in danger because of an automobile accident, there is stress involved in going through that trauma. Facing a major natural disaster, a hurricane, an earthquake, brings stress to people. In looking at all of these things, we do realize that Christians have resources, abilities. I was struck with this 10th one, with the events that happened a few years ago with the great flood in Nashville, Tennessee. And what intrigued me was, whenever you looked at the scale of damage that was done economically, and even the loss of life that was there, it was far greater than many of the great disasters that we hear about in the news. But the intriguing thing was that there was no major appeal for nationwide assistance, because not only the churches of Christ, but other men and women of faith in that city bound together and very quickly rebuilt. Whenever we look at all of these matters of stress, faithful Christians have a network of love and resources that the outside world just simply does not have. And yet, all of these stresses are dangers for Christians as well as those on the outside. The danger of stress can be seen in Matthew 13:22, the parable of the sower. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. What are the thorns? The cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches. Another passage uses the expression, the desire for other things. Whenever we look at the danger that befalls us, there is a danger focusing on, of looking at what the world can do to you. These 10 stressors that we listed and so many other things, if you become fixated, if you let those things control your life, whatever controls your life is your God. It's idolatry. The danger of looking at what the world can do to you. The cares of the world are thorns that can choke out the good news. Also, looking at what the world can do for you. The desire of other things, materialism, also thorns that can choke out truth. Instead, we should be looking at how much God loves you. Two passages. Psalm 23, verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. 1 Peter 5, verses 6 and 7. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. We keep reviewing the question, what makes life worth living? And the answer ultimately is the love of God that is revealed in Jesus Christ. What makes life worth living? What helps us to keep going through the difficult times of life? It's remembering that even if we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, as we will, the Lord is with us. And it's not that we aren't going to have anxieties, but you cast all your anxieties on God, because God cares for you. This way of Jesus Christ is what makes life worth living. As Christians, we need to more consistently follow the way of Christ, not looking at the cares of the world, but looking at the way in which God helps us through them. For those who are not yet Christians, if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, then you can become a Christian by making a statement of that faith and being baptized, being placed underwater and brought up again. A pool is prepared right over here for that very purpose. If you desire to be a Christian today, we invite you to come forward. If you want more study, one of our elders will be at the back of this auditorium to meet with you following this time of worship. But just now, if we can assist you, please step forward as together we stand and sing.
I have decided to follow